Hey everyone, here's another Comic Clerks video. I'm here to talk to you about the episode Arrow Beyond Redemption. So this video will contain spoilers, so I'm just letting you guys know beforehand. Alright, so this episode starts, with the SCPD, taking down a bunch of drug dealers. And well, they seem to be SCPD when two other officers show up, and they seem to not have expected each other, and the detectives didn't hear anybody call for ESU. And I guess these other officers are ESU officers, and the ESU officer says that they're not supposed to be there either. And this is when the ESU officer shoots the detectives, and they take the drugs. So already we got dirty cops on our hands, and I guess it is Star City, so you should expect that. So Thea and Laurel are in a vacant building, and looks like it's the new hideout. And Thea tells Laurel she hasn't said anything about Sara, and Laurel tells Thea Sara just needs a few more days to recover. This is when John walks in, and they ask him, does he know why they're there and what's going on? But he doesn't know either, and Oliver just told him that he has a big announcement. So Oliver and Felicity walk in, and Thea thinks the big announcement is that he finally proposed, and asks Felicity why she isn't wearing it. And Oliver looks at her like, nah, that's not it. And so this isn't the big announcement, so good thing she didn't spill the secret on that one. And looks like they're in Blood's old campaign office. And it looks like the big announcement is that Oliver is going to be running for mayor. The team isn't so sure about this at all, and they're just looking at him like, he just didn't get the response he was looking for. And they just want to let him know that they don't want him to be in over his head. And so Felicity suggests that they should tell them the other announcement, opening a door that leads to an elevator. And they look like they chose this place because Blood has already set up a lair in this location. And so I guess since Blood's not there anymore, they decided they're going to use it. So they reveal the new layer, and everybody is pretty much stunned. Looks like Cisco and Star Labs was in on this project, and it just looks amazing. It's awesome, pretty much. If you haven't seen it, you need to see it so you know what I'm talking about. This is when there's an alert, and it shows that the two detectives that were shot, and then John suggests that him and Thea should do some recon on this. And Oliver decides he's going to go talk to Captain Lance. And Laurel tells him maybe he should leave out the part of him running for mayor. So with Captain Lance, he's trying to get evidence processed from the two detectives being shot. And it seems he's not getting anywhere because he basically doesn't have enough manpower. Oliver shows up, and they go to talking in Land's office, and he tells Oliver about his budget cuts, and Oliver reveals that he might be able to help with that when he becomes mayor. Lance laughs as to what, after happened to the last few mayors, Lance hoped Ollie wins. So this is when he gets a text from Laurel needing to see him, and he gives Ollie the evidence that he was trying to get checked out, because he believes, since he can't, get the evidence processed, Ollie would be able to get it processed faster and find, the cop killers. So we get to a flashback, and we're back in, in his original cave where he's giving, the woman that he saved instructions on surviving. And she is trying to warn him about the men at the camp, and he tells her that she's going to have to do something for him, and she's not going to like it at all. So with Felicity, she goes to Palmer Tech to bust Curtis because she believes he's pranking her with messages that are coming to her phone. And Curtis says it's not him, but he recognizes the code from the message from Summer Rae's experiment. And looks like the message will access the recording of Ray's last moment, and Felicity doesn't want to hear it at all, so she refuses to help Curtis. This is when Oliver texts her and tells her they have something, so she heads out. At the lair, Oliver gives her the SIM card from the crime scene, and Felicity says that it's from a walkie-talkie, and she tracks where the walkie has been. So I don't really use walkie-talkies, so I'm guessing walkie-talkies nowadays have GPS signatures on them, and so she tracked everywhere that this walkie had been at this. So she finds the location, and the team heads out, and they get to a warehouse where they find a room where all the ESU gear is, and the team figure out that the one who killed the detectives were cops. So, that's pretty much a big thing for them. Dirty cops on the force. I don't know why it was such a surprise to them. It's Star City. Come on now. It's not Gotham, but it's Star City. We've come to expect not so much of the people of Star City. So it shouldn't have been that much of a surprise. With Laurel and Lance, Laurel has decided to take him to see Sara because of all the secrets that they had last season. She promised not to keep any more secrets from him. And Laurel tells him all about the Lazarus Pit, and Lance says this isn't Sara, and Laurel tries to convince him that she will remember if they help her. And Laurel starts to show Sara pictures. This is when Sara decides to speak and asks who she is. And, Laurel thinks they're making progress, but this is when Sara decides to choke Laurel out. Lance saves Laurel, and, she tells her dad that Sara just needs more time. So we get back to the lair, and Felicity, she says to Oliver that they need an entire new police force when he campaigns. And Oliver tells her that it's not the entire police force. And Thea rules out Lance. Of course, Lance isn't. Okay, I guess he's dealing with dark, but we know he's not dirty. And John says since Lance is MIA, they had to figure this out for themselves. So Felicity tells them that in the last 2 months, there's been fighting between gangs on drug shipments being stolen, but it looks like it's been these ESU officers who's been stealing the drugs and selling them back to these dealers. So Oliver comes up with an idea of setting up a drugstore and asking Thea to set up a buy and Felicity for more money. So Thea and John meet up with one of her old contacts, and it seems like he has exactly what they need. So we get to Oliver and Lance, and he tells them about the murder of his detectives and that they were murdered by cops, telling him that the SIM card he gave them led them to an armory which had all SCP'd issued gear. And he tells Lance his plan, and he wants Lance to leak the information into the department. So Lance wants to be a part of this, He wants to bust these dirty cops himself. So we get to a flashback, on the island. Oliver walks back into the camp, and they wonder what happened to him. And he tells them that the woman ran into a minefield, and one of them got Richards, the guy who was tailing him, but he caught and killed her and made it memorable. They accuse Oliver of being suspicious because 2 people have died already on the island since he got there from landmines, and they find that suspicious. So this leader wants to see the woman's dead body, so Oliver takes him to her. So that's the end of the flashback, and on the setup, Thea is reminiscing about her high school days, and John is reminded how he has to raise a daughter in this city, and poor you, John, sorry for you. So the ESU team approaches and everyone gets ready. This is when the ESU officers start to shoot as soon as they get close. And the team try to defend herself. Canary tries her scream, but it's taken out by a special gun, that inhibits her collar. And John is trapped in a net launcher while Oliver and Thea try to fight off some of the ESU officers hand to hand, while Lance is firing from a distance. This is when the ESU leader tells them to pull out and they escape. So Lance confirms that all that equipment, was SCPD equipment, and they head back to the lair, which Felicity isn't happy about that they brought Lance with them. This is when Lance comments about how they have a lot more better resources, and Laurel tells them that the team they fought tonight seemed to have some impressive toys also. So Lance admits that he reinstated the Vigilante Task Force and that it had 40 officers on it. And Lance tells Felicity that he'll give her access to the department's computer network, and so that will be able to speed along their search for who these cops are. So with the ESU team, they're going over the night's events, and they're happy that they packed the special gear, but we're worried about Captain Lance. One suggests that they take out Captain Lance, and the officer who shot the detective says they don't kill cops, and she says they were in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they say, they should put it all to a vote. But she pulls out her gun and says that her votes are 9mm bullets. So they only are doing what is best for the city, because the city is dying and they are not criminals. And she tells them that Lance isn't a problem, he's a solution. So we get to Palmer Tech. Looks like Curtis has been trying to get in touch with Felicity, and he finds out that Felicity should know the password, and she should unlock the message. And she tells him that she doesn't want to hear the last message from her dead ex-boyfriend, and could he understand that? And he tells her no, because his brother died 6 years ago, and he would do anything to hear one last message from him. This is when we get to Lance, and he is having a meeting with Dark. And he tells him about Sara, her being brought back by the Lazarus Pit, and he asks Dark, does he know anything, because he used to be a member of the League. And Dark tells him that it's a miracle that Sara is even back at all, and if there's that the best thing for Lance is that he puts Sara down, because Sara might be back, but her soul's not back. And, the most loving act he could do for Sara is just to kill her. Lance is not happy with that information. He is not cool with that at all. So we get back to the lair, and we see Felicity checking out Oliver, while he does the iron ladder. I hope all you ladies enjoyed that, all you guys who might have enjoyed that also. So we find out that Felicity has some information on the officer who is Liza Warner. If you don't know who she is in the comics, she's the lady cop. You might want to check that out. It's a cool little comic, but I never really got into it, but some of you might, check it out, lady cop. So she tells Oliver, that Liza has $250,000 in offshore bank accounts, and that it has to be her. So she tells Oliver, with the police access Lance gave her, she has all the camera open, and she's running facial recognition software, trying to find them. And this is when Oliver notices Lance on one of the cameras with Dark. And I'm like, out of all the cameras going, that's the one you pick up, that's the one you notice. And I understand that you would see him if you were actually looking for him, but out of all the faces going through, the screen, okay, you're not supposed to ask questions like that. I won't ask the question like that, but I'm just saying, all the faces going in on the screen, that's the one you pick up right away. But alright. So we get to Lance's apartment. Oliver is waiting on him in the dark, and he tells Lance he knows about him and Damien Dark, and Lance tells him that it's complicated, and Oliver doesn't get to judge him, Oliver tells him that he's a hypocrite and that Lance always, put himself above Oliver, more righteous, better than him. And Lance tells Oliver all about Dark and how he first thought he was trying to help the city and didn't know everything until it was too late. And this is when Dark started threatening Laurel. And Oliver tells Lance not to use Laurel as an excuse. She can take care of herself. And this is when Lance, said, yeah, he knows that. And he brought up, he said Sara could take care of herself too. This is when Oliver starts screaming at him, telling him not to hide behind his daughters and that he should be ashamed of himself, and tells Lance that he was the reason that Oliver decided to run for mayor. And this is when Lance asks, Oliver, what's he going to do? Oliver doesn't know what he's going to do and leaves. So we get to another flashback, and Oliver is telling how he killed the woman. He choked her. The soldier tells him that he doesn't sound like this was his first murder. And he tells Oliver that he sounds like a stone cold killer and that he's a dark bastard and has something cold inside of him. And Oliver asks him, then should the guy be afraid of him? And he answers, no, because he's the exact same way. And if Oliver is lying about killing that lady, he'll find out how dark that guy can be. So we cut back, Oliver and Thea are reminiscing about old memories, baseball games that they went to, and he's having doubts about the city, and he doesn't think he should run for mayor. So we get to Sara, and it looks like she is supposed to be looking at pictures. This is when Lance shows up and points a gun at her, telling her that she's not his baby. And this is when Laurel shows up and asks him, what's he doing? Telling her to put the gun down, And he tells her that, that he has to do this, that it's not his baby. And she tells him he's not going to kill his own daughter. And he breaks down, drops the gun, and he dips out of the basement. And while he's exiting the basement, he runs into Liza. They knock him out and take him. This is when Laurel comes up and tries to take him on, but they knock her out also. So Liza is taking Lance to an SCPD evidence contraband disposal building. Supposedly all the drugs that are confiscated are sent there and they're incinerated. And the only way in is with the captain's approval. So Liza asks Lance what was his plan for the city, just to sit behind his desk and let it die. And he tells her what she's doing is a disrespect to the badge, and he would never do that and make himself a criminal like her. And she tells him that she's no criminal, just the officer backed into a tight corner. And I'm wondering what tight corner she's been backed into. Is it just money issues, or is it just, family issues or something like that? This is when he lets them into the facility. So with the team, Laurel, she has told them all about Liza taking her father. And it looks like Felicity sees where Lance's credentials were used. And the team heads out. And they're ready for the ESU this time. The guy who used the gun to stop Canary's cry didn't work because she used a new frequency. And she gets her payback for that one. So no more net gun tricks, They're all pretty much are working, none of their stuff is working. The team has the upper hand on this one. This is when Ollie corners Liza. He shoots an arrow at her, which she shoots right out of the air. And then he lets loose a cable arrow that ties her up while he goes to free Lance. And, the team pretty much dispatches the ESU pretty quickly. But, Liza escapes and sends a knife right into Oliver's back while he's distracted. And she tells him, don't move or she'll sever his spinal cord. And I don't know, but I was kind of rooting for her there. Like, Oliver, how'd you let her get the drop on you like that? I'm like, you kind of deserve that right there. I was rooting for her right there. I don't know if she grew on me for a second. She's been going at it with him all episodes. No not really, she's only taking a beating because she's not the hero in this show. But I think, if they let her do what she did, she give him a run for his money at the time in his career right now, because it seems like he's letting people get over on him constantly. But anyways, this is when, Lance, she tries to talk her down, telling her she's not a criminal and has to face what she's done. I guess he calms her down. She gives up and Lance arrests her. Pretty easy. She didn't give a fight at all after that. Lance gives good speeches, I guess. So we get back to Lance's apartment. Oliver is waiting for him, and Lance suggests that he just give him a key. So Oliver asks him, did he mean all of what he said to Liza? And Lance said that he did, and he would be turning himself in the next day. And Oliver tells him that none of them have ever been able to get close to Damien Dark, and that he should stay and spy on him. This is when we get to another flashback to the island, and Oliver shows the guy the body of the woman. He checks her pulse, and it looks like she's dead. So he tells Oliver to get rid of the body and that the cave that they're in may be useful, and leaves. So Oliver checks the woman and hits a pressure point on her neck, and she starts breathing again. So I guess he's, put her in a death-like state or something like that. And she asks him how he does that, and he tells her he hasn't always been alone on the island. Yes, we know that. While the soldier is walking away, he finds the backpack that Oliver had buried with the message he sent to Waller. And I'm like, why did he not hide it anywhere? He had it buried, not even buried. It was out there for the guy to trip over pretty much. That pissed me off. So you're not supposed to get upset about stuff like that, but that's what happened. And I'm like, he should know better. Why did he do that? So this flashback ends, and Oliver walks into his campaign office, and it looks like Thea has gathered a bunch of interns to help Oliver's campaign, and she has wrote him a speech, and he's announcing his candidacy and tells him to go put on a suit. At the announcement, he tells him that, he wants to be mayor so he can pretty much save the city, what he's been trying to do for all the years he's been back. And while his speech is going on, Dark is being delivered a weird box. Laurel is watching Liza in the interrogation room. Felicity has checked Ray's message, and he ends the speech by, telling them the one way they'll save this city is, being united. This is, pretty much the end of the episode, but they do leave us with a scene with Laurel, and she's headed back down in her basement, and it looks like Sara has broken her chains and has escaped. Alright, so that's the end of this episode. I don't know how you felt about it, but it had its highs and its lows where I was happy and where I was pissed off. So tell me, you guys, what you liked about it and what you didn't like about it. And hopefully you're ready for the next episode next week. And, thank you guys for watching, and have a good night.